The marriage of Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney. Mr. Engineer, could you please bring those two to the altar? The Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney. Bennie Thompson, the Hamite brother, obviously, is from the great state of Mississippi. And Liz Cheney, of course, is from the great state of Montana. But Liz Cheney's father, Dick Cheney, was George Bush vice president. A lot of people thought he was president, Dick Cheney. But that's his daughter, Liz, and these two. And I'm going to pronounce the wedding vows. I'm going to ask Benny if he will have, who I start with first? I start with Liz first. Liz Cheney will, they are, by the way, let me back up a minute. They are the chairpersons, co-chairpersons of the January 6th Select Committee on the Insurrection, what I've referred to as the assault on the Temple of Democracy, about a year ago. Now, on this coming Thursday will be a year would have passed since that event took place, and these two have been put in charge by Nancy Pelosi to do an investigation into that event that took place, which I refer to as the assault on the Temple of Democracy. So, I want to ask Bennie Thompson first. Bennie Thompson will, because I'm performing a marriage. They're married together, and I think they're doing a great job. I think they make a great couple, don't you? Bennie Thompson, will you have Liz Cheney to be your lawfully wedded wife to have and to hold from this day forward and forevermore? Thank you for that. He says yes. Okay. Now, Liz Cheney, will you have Bennie Thompson to be your lawfully husband, wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward? And they are to, and the ceremony, Jamie Raskin's in the background. He's the best man. So can I say, and you'd say this as well, leave that there for just a second, Mr. Engineer. Benny, I've been to Montana. I like Montana. You know, I've been to Mississippi about 4 or 5 times, not very often. But I've been to Montana a lot of different times. And as soon as this COVID-19 is over, I'm going back out there again. Glacier National Park is in Montana. That's one of the reasons why I go. But Mississippi, I've been there a few times. I cannot share this real. Mississippi has got some of the most beautiful Hamite women on planet Earth. That's right. Now, I've been all over the planet. I've been all over. I've been to China. I've been to Africa, the continent of Africa, South America. I've been all over everywhere. And I've seen women. But I tell you, the best looking women. And then next to that is the state of Alabama. And of course, on the other side of that is the state of Louisiana, where you will find the most beautiful Hamite women anywhere on the planet. And they're all down there in the Gulf Port. Maybe it has something to do, Mississippi has the largest calculation of black people of any state in America, I believe, per capita. I'm not sure that, Chicago may have more people, but per capita, to use a term that gives a measurement that qualifies everything. Mississippi has a lot of black people. A lot of black people. James Meredith, the slain civil rights leader, and Medgar Evers, all Mississippians, right? And Bennie Thompson is in that order, civil rights order, of course. And the neighboring state of Alabama. But if you want to find now listen, hey, let me just qualify something. The women here in the ATLAH World Missionary Church are the cream of the crop. They're the beautiful of the beautiful. Let's be clear about what we're clear about here, all right? The Hamite women here in the ATLAH Church. But just in general practices, if you're looking for good-looking Hamite women, go to Jackson, Mississippi, or Selma, Alabama, or what's that town in Alabama, the seaport town in Alabama? Oh my goodness gracious me! Or New Orleans, for that matter, and then Mobile, Alabama. So, all right. So, congratulations to Bennie Thompson in order for the marriage of Bennie Thompson. Now, I'm just doing satire. Somebody might try to sue me or claim that I'm lying or post. I'm just doing satire. My God, they're not legally married, and You know, I just want to, these Facebook people, I got some people that troll me. They can't wait to find something that they can try to take me down off Facebook or anything else they can take me down off of. But I thought it'd be a little fun to say that. All right, so this mission, you can drop that. All right, here's the deal. The Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney, they have been tasked with the responsibility of discovering what actually took place. And they came out with some blistering reports this weekend. Liz Cheney was saying that during the 3 hours and 7 minutes that the riot went on at the Capitol building, Tribulation Trump was in the dining room next to the Oval Office, sitting there watching it on television, on the big screen. And several people came in. Mark Meadows came in. This is first-hand reports, according to Liz Cheney, that several people came in while he was watching it on the screen and told him to get up and call it off. This thing is ugly. And he just sat there doing that. Finally, Ivanka, his daughter, came in, and he asked her father to please call this off. And he wouldn't do it. She came back a second time. Now, this is, according to Liz Cheney, that they've got documented reports that a year ago, his daughter tried to get him. His son sent a text, tried to get him to call off the riot or the assault on the Temple of Democracy, and he wouldn't do it for 3 hours. And then when he finally did that, y'all go home, I love you, that he had to do 3 other takes before that one, because what he did say was so encouraging and so supportive of the assault on Temple of Democracy that they wouldn't broadcast that. So they got a lot of stuff that they're producing. We're going to start seeing a lot of it starting on this coming Thursday. But the matter here is that Liz Cheney and Bennie Thompson have hindsight now of watching how the 2 impeachment trials failed. Though they were able to impeach him in the House, there were 2 things. One is that the Attorney General Barr, and also they didn't have the Senate, so they couldn't convict him. He was impeached, but not convicted twice. So by the way, I don't have a dog in this fight, to use a term, and I don't really like that term. Let me take that back. A dog in this fight. I'm not either yay nor nay on this one. I'm just being the quintessential James David Manning. I'm just reporting on it the way I see it, and doing it from a satirical point of view, but also from a very truthful point of view, and possibly from a point of view that you're not going to get from anywhere else but on the Manning Report. So I'm not on anybody's side here. All right, let's be clear about that. But Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney, they realized that Trump was not convicted for 2 reasons. Though he was impeached twice, they couldn't get the Senate to convict him. And moreover, Bill Barr scrambled the reports that did come out of the investigation that had been done against Trump, and whether or not he had coerced with Russia to win the first 2016 election. But I can tell you this, that it should be, I think the thing that the Proud Boys and, the Oath Keepers and the Trump supporters, the MAGA Hat Nation people, and Trump himself ought to just say it was an insurrection. That's what it was. Let's stop beating around the bush. Let's stop playing with names, and let's just call it what. Let's tell it like it is. It was an insurrection. Were I giving counsel to them, and maybe they'll listen to me, I don't know. But I think everybody who is on the 70% of Republicans who are supportive of Trump, believe that the election was stolen, ought to call this an insurrection as a just cause. Listen, I told you, I'm not on anybody's side. But when Dr. King marched on Washington for civil rights, and Rosa Parks didn't get off that bus, and they went across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and all that stuff that went on, they were marching according to unjust laws. Henry David Thoreau, this weirdo out of Harvard, that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worshipped, and along with Gandhi, wrote this civil disobedience. And it was honored by Johnson, by Kennedy, civil disobedience. So were I advising Trump, I don't know if he'd take my advice, I would tell him on this coming Thursday to actually declare that it was an insurrection against an unjust government. That's what I would advise him to do. I mean, because that's what they're saying it is, and that's what it was. See, the thing that the reason why it's best to just come out and hang the truth out on the line, because that's what it was. It was an insurrection. But for them to then say it was a peaceful protest is a lie, and everybody knows that. You ask the people that are confessing that are being sent to jail, ask them if it was a peaceful protest. And hell no, it wasn't a peaceful protest. They know that. The whole world knows. Xi Jinping in China, Kim Jong-un knows that it wasn't a peaceful protest. So for Trump, who is a notorious liar, to get his people, his supporters, to call this a peaceful protest rather than calling what it was an insurrection. That's what it was. It was in there, and just say it and be through with it. And let the cards or chips or whatever fall where they may. This, what you see before you, my brother, was an insurrection of the highest order. And you could also turn it around and say it was a noble thing if you believe the election was stolen. Now, I'm not giving you I don't believe I personally don't believe the election was stolen. I don't know. I just don't believe it. But I don't know. But if the election was stolen, then if that kind of grievous, if you will, act against a government or a sitting president, then you ought to call it an insurrection. Stop calling it a peaceful protest. And everybody knows you're lying. Everybody knows you're lying. If the election was stolen, then you have a right to raise up an insurrection, a civil disobedience against a crooked or criminal government, unjust government that stole an election. If that's what they did. I don't believe they did, but that's what they say. You know, you could call it an insurrection. You can call it a Fort Sumter. And you can call it a Concord. You know, and Crispus Attucks, a sail on a wheel up in Boston at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. It's a Crispus Attucks, this Hamite brother, right, was the first person to fall in the Revolutionary War against Great Britain. An insurrection against Great Britain. That's what it was. An insurrection of the Revolutionary War was an insurrection. It later got called a Revolutionary War because it developed. But Crispus Attucks, this Hamite brother, was the first one that got shot up in Boston, Massachusetts, what they refer to as the Boston Massacre. But, you know, were advising Trump. Listen, everybody knows it was an insurrection. That's what it was. Now, what's my opinion on it? Am I saying that because I'm against Trump or I'm against and I'm for Biden? No, I'm just saying what my eyes saw and what everybody else on the planet knows. It was an insurrection. It failed. But that's what it was. It was not a peaceful protest. I mean, you got some guy sitting in Nancy Pelosi's desk with his feet up on the desk. You got another guy called the shaman walking around there with horns on his head. You got people going through the papers of the congressperson's desk. You got people breaking windows. You got men with arms. You got the CIA, the FBI, and everybody else with their Glock 9s pointing toward the crowd. That wasn't no peaceful march. That was an insurrection. It failed. And maybe that's why they don't want to call it that. It failed. It failed. And I think that, you know, how do you have a peaceful protest when you're talking about hanging Mike Pence? So I think that, I think you ought to call it what it was. I'm going to wrap this up in just a moment. But the other thing is that, so Bennie Thompson, who just got married to Liz Cheney, they plan to release info that's going to make your ears tingle. It's going to make your teeth turn green. These people got some testimony. There are some people that Liz Cheney and Bennie Thompson, they have interviewed over 300 people. They got some stuff they're gonna tell y'all starting next week. Starting this Thursday, they're gonna make your ears tingle. This is gonna be interesting. Stay tuned to your television, and I'm gonna be hanging out here on the Manning Report, giving you a blow-by-blow account. Because they're looking to take Trump down. Yeah, I think what they have, and what I hear them intimating, is that they actually have hardcore evidence that can, lead to an indictment against Tribulation Trump. Whether Merrick Garland will do it, and I'll follow up on it, but I think they've got hardcore evidence that can lead to an indictment. Let me ask you this. If Mark Meadows, Don Jr., Ivanka, McCartney, all those people are asking Trump to call off the insurrection. If they believe that he had the power to call it off, then logic, which says there's a reason rooted in truth, says that he's the one that called it on. If he didn't call it, if he ain't the one that started it, then he can't stop it. Whoever started it, whoever brought those people to Washington to form that insurrection, and that's what it was. It was not a peaceful protest. It was an insurrection. I'm not taking sides, but it was an insurrection. Come on, everybody knows that's what it was. Whoever formed that, and it was organized. It wasn't just, I've been to marches on Washington. I've been out of Washington a whole lot of time. I've been in marches. Everyone I've been to was organized. Especially the Great Tea Party event back in 2010. That thing was organized to the nth degree. And this was organized too. This was organized. So whoever organized it had the power to call it. And whoever called it, they said Trump had the power to call it off. You said, well, he's the president. Even though he didn't organize it, he had the power to call it. I think that nobody would have organized something like that. You don't think Rudy Giuliani with his crazy drunk self, that boy drunker than a skunk. Bernard Carrick, who's been in jail himself and getting ready to go back to jail again, and he's singing like a bird up here in New York and down there before. Because that Bernard Carrick boy, that boy singing like a bird. He and Rudy Giuliani, they don't want to go to jail. I don't think they organized it. No, I don't think they would have done that. And if they would have done it without Tribulation Trump's approval, then they would have been, you would see them hanging from the gallows today. You see Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and Sidney Powell, and Bernard Carrick, and a bunch of other people. You see them people hanging from the Washington Monument. If they called that and Trump didn't approve it, didn't know anything about it, come on, let's talk now. Let's talk. Now you know it's true. So Trump called for an insurrection, and there's nothing wrong with that. Martin Luther King called for one. No, ain't nothing, civil disobedience. Martin King called for, a disobedience. Was there violence associated with it? Stokely Carmichael walked right beside Rap Brown and Stokely Carmichael and Martin King walking arm in arm talking about we shall overcome. That's Stokely Carmichael talking that black power and Rap Brown too. Listen, they ought to just go ahead and man up and admit it was an insurrection. I think that way they would have some political cover and some historical cover. They can all go all the way back to Concord, all the way back to the Boston Massacre, all the way back to the Revolution. If they just man up and say what it is. I don't think they're going to do that because Trump likes to lie. And he's put that lie out there that it was a peaceful march. You got to be out your mind. I mean, look at these people. How do and Kevin McCarthy, right? They were all scared as what. And they were saying the day that it happened, Trump bears the blame on this. Lindsey Graham was having a hissy fit. Lindsey Graham got rid of, talking about this is it. I ain't going with Trump no further. This ain't me. This ain't where my South Carolina nannies raised me to do this kind of stuff. I ain't going no further. The next day he was down there in Mar-a-Lago kissing Trump's ring. Anyway. So I believe the web is going to unravel, and I think Bennie Thompson and and Liz Cheney, what do you think about this? That this is if they call it an insurrection, then they would have a legal grounds to go to court, and they'd have political, if you will, precedents to be able to demonstrate why it was so. If they really believe the election was stolen. And that would, either way, it's a revolutionary time. And because what Bennie Thompson and Liz Cheney are going to do over the summer could potentially lead to an indictment of Trump if that happens. And they're going to expose a lot of things. A lot of other people are going to go down in this process. It's going to be a revolution anyway. It's going to be a revolution anyway. There's going to be more bloodshed. You're going to see something far worse than what you saw march on Washington. And you have to understand, everybody who's a part of the Trump group, they're organizing. Liz Cheney and Ben Thompson are organizing to try to bring this to a point where it can sell the American on the idea that this was an insurrection. And those are the people that the charges are being brought against. They're raising their voices. And they're preparing for it. So it's going to be one very dark year politically here in America. And the Lord has taken his hands off America. The only place left that's sacred, you may not believe this, right? You don't have to believe it. Listen, this is a free country. The only place he's left his hand is at ATLAH, but he's taken his hand off America. It's gone. It's like Willie at the train station in Raising in the Sun. Willie gone, Willie done gone. And the glory of God has left America. Me. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. And just think what my life would be like if I decided to embrace Black Lives Matter, or embrace Obama, or embrace blackness and defend people like Andrew Brown or Michael Brown or Trayvon Martin. Or if I embraced LGBTQ and said, man, and myself perform marriages. Imagine the wealth that I would have. Imagine how often you'd see me on the news and all the people of the community would be worshiping and saying what a great preacher and great pastor I am. You do know that would happen, right? I want you to consider that I will not and never under any circumstance nor the threat of death ever go anywhere near thinking about doing anything as satanic as that. But what I do want to ask you to do is to consider my righteousness. I'm the Lord's servant, and you might want to help me. You might want to say, well, listen, especially if you're at retirement age and your life is settled and your income's, you're pretty much settled for the rest of your days, but you have excess, so you have what you can give, or you can make this ministry. You can further this word to reach the 50,000 righteous men through your giving. Maybe you have stocks, or you have bonds, or you have properties, houses, or land, or jewelry that you could just give to the ministry, cars, automobiles, paintings. I'm just going to give them to that ministry. If Jesus is coming back to Harlem, to 123rd Street, then I want to give my possessions to prepare a place for him. Jesus said he's going to prepare a place for us, but I'm going to give my possessions, my paintings, my gold, my jewelry, my stocks, my land, my property, my houses to prepare a place for him when he comes back, that the land would truly be holy ground for James David Manning is his servant. Thank you for doing that. You'll know how to give. The Lord will show you how, but start doing it immediately. Time is of the essence.